this week's episode of So I've Been Told. I'm Adam Kramer, the host of this podcast, and this week my guest is Alex Jones of Druse, and this conversation is a couple weeks old, so keep that in mind as you listen, but hopefully it still makes sense. But yeah, we had a really good time hanging out, and I hope you enjoy the conversation.
All right, so a lot of times, because I'm kind of a narcissist, I will ask my guest where we first met. And I honestly don't remember where it was for you and I.
I don't know if we had like a big monumental first meeting, but I definitely remember a series of events in which we were in the same room together. It was definitely back in the meat grinder days. I used to go see Endangered Youth a couple times. I think I saw you guys 4 or 5 times, maybe, at that space.
Nice.
And it was probably at one of those shows that we first had an
Yeah.
interaction. But that was when I developed a general awareness of who you were. And then I fell off the radar, and then thus you kind of fell off my radar. And then once Druse started happening and we were playing shows here, I was like, oh man, Adam Kramer. I missed him. He's back in my life again.
So you had played a show at the Meat Grinder at one point, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was Kingdom of God.
Okay.
My old noise endeavor.
Okay. Was that? Well, let's go back to the beginning. What was your introduction to punk and underground music, and then tell me about the first shows and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's not that romantic. I think my introduction to punk, or really just any underground music that wasn't Aaron Carter, was probably the School of Rock soundtrack. I know that's just impossibly lame, but the first CD I remember receiving, or like really the first tangible piece of music I ever had, was the Aaron Carter's Party in the USA album. And I didn't know anything about music. I was like maybe 5-6 years old. All the stuff that my parents listened to I thought was like lame on the purpose of them being my parents. So of course everything they did probably was lame. I had learned that was incredibly untrue once I realized that my dad listened to the Talking Heads and David Bowie and all that stuff, and that really kind of changed things around for me. But I think the School of Rock soundtrack was definitely the first time I heard like the Ramones. I don't remember now who was on that soundtrack, but definitely the Ramones were, and I thought that was just the coolest thing in the world.
Nice.
I remember the song was that Bonzo Goes to Bitburg.
Yeah, song, I remember that in the movie.
Which is like the least Ramones-y Ramones song you can get into first, but I thought it was so cool. And then pretty shortly after that, in the timeline of my adolescence, I remember I was at Borders bookstore with my mom, which really dates the story, and I picked up a copy of Green Day's Dookie, because I thought the title was hilarious, and the cover had a dog throwing poop, and I think there's like there's a lot of suggestive imagery on that cover, and I begged my mom to buy it, and I think she eventually just did out of desperation. And that band was my whole life for the next 10 years. I loved Green Day. So that was really the big catalyst for me. And then as I was getting older, my dad had a lot of Sex Pistols records, or by a lot of he had that one Sex Pistols record. He listened to a lot of like krautrock, like Can. He listened to a lot of Neu. He had a lot of stuff like that. And that really got me into kind of weirder stuff. He was really into Kraftwerk, which really turned me on to some way more left field experimental stuff. And it wasn't until I was like a freshman in high school that I heard about hardcore, and that was probably with, besides Black Flag and Minor Threat and all those obvious bands, I think the first like contemporary hardcore band I ever liked was like Half Heart, and I was obsessed with that band for a while. So yeah, that's basically my origin story.
Cool. Yeah, it's you're fortunate to have parents that were into that kind of stuff.
I'm super aware of that, definitely.
Yeah. Now, how old are you too? Cause
I'm 21.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
you're a baby.
I'm impossibly young. I am a child.
Well, I didn't actually know how old you were, but when you said the School of Rock soundtrack was your
this is gonna make me seem even younger. School of Rock was the first PG-13 movie my parents let me see in theaters, and I think I was 11 when it came out.
It was it's still a pretty great movie.
Oh, I watched it probably a month or two ago, and it still holds up. I realized that oh my god, what's the name of the band? in that movie that he gets kicked out of.
Oh.
The dude from Rent is in it. That's not gonna help. I remember I knew all of their songs by heart, and I didn't even realize it as I was rewatching the movie. It was so embarrassing, but so fulfilling.
Yeah, it's a good time. I've watched it within the last 6 months, so you're not alone there.
Yeah.
Now, when did you start going to shows, and what were some of the first bands that you saw?
So I really started going to shows when I met my friend Rory in my sophomore year of high school, I want to say, maybe even late freshman year. And he was crazy into hardcore, and he was like really straight edge, and that was just his whole, way of living.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me to a show at the Dublin Underground, and I believe it was Death Before Dishonor, and a lot of other bands. I think Forked Tongues probably played.
Okay.
That was back when that band was still pretty new. And I remember just being so excited to be there because I knew what hardcore was at that point, but I had no idea that hardcore shows happened in Rochester. Mm-hmm. I thought that was kind of like a New York City, LA thing. Okay. And I was like, oh, wow, like this community and this style of music exists everywhere. Mm-hmm. So that show was cool. It was also really scary because I remember there was a big fight during Death Before Dishonor, and then a bunch of people got maced.
Oh,
which
shit
is horrible. But I remember at the time that was just such a bizarre experience for me because I just had no idea that kind of stuff happened at shows. I think the only shows I had been to prior to that were the first show I ever saw was Blondie and the Cars at Jones Beach when I was probably 9 years old.
Okay.
And then when I was 13, maybe 12, I went and saw Real Big Fish and Streetlight Manifesto at the Roseland Ballroom in New York City.
Did you live on Long Island or New York City?
I lived in I was born in Dobbs Ferry, and then I lived in Peekskill, which is a little suburb outside New York City, until I was about 4 or 5. And then my family moved to Scarsdale, which is a sort of upper middle class suburb right outside New York, and New York City, that is. And then we moved to Rochester when I was about 11 because we couldn't afford to live there anymore because it's just so incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Tri-State area real estate.
Yeah.
Then we moved up here. So yeah, I'm not a Rochester native, but I've lived here for basically my whole adult life.
Yeah. And you, right around the same time you were watching School of Rock and hearing the Ramones for the first time.
Yeah. There's definitely everything kind of came together all at once.
Nice. Now, when did you start playing in bands, and what was your first band?
Okay. I remember the first time I ever did music in a group setting was at a talent show that we did at Scarsdale Middle School, and it was me and these 3 kids, I want to say. I was on drums for some reason. I had no idea how to play drums. I didn't know what I was doing, but they needed somebody to do it. And we were covering Smoke on the Water, and we were covering Purple Haze. And I remember we practiced like twice, and we got on stage at the talent show, or at the rehearsals for the talent show. We didn't even make it to the talent show. Mm-hmm. And I forgot everything I was supposed to do, and I just did like a drum solo, and then I got up and left, and all those people didn't want to be friends with me anymore because I had ruined their dreams of musical stardom, which I still kind of feel bad about. And after that, I just kind of didn't want to do music for a while because I felt like I was just going to ruin everything. And then I tried out for that same talent show again. Yeah, we're just going all the way back. I remember I tried out for that same talent show again like the year after. It must have been like 7th grade. And I was super into My Chemical Romance then.
We all were.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a rite of passage.
Yeah.
For bitter white teenagers. And oh my God, there's some song on the Black Parade, which was like my album. I think it's that one, Cancer, where it's like just the piano. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was the most heartbreaking, beautiful song ever written. And I decided in my, juvenile brain that I was going to go up on stage and sing that song, and everybody was just going to be like wowed and start crying. And I didn't realize that I didn't know how to get just an instrumental version of the track. So I got up on stage and I put the CD in and I started singing along to it, but then Gerard Way's vocals kept like throwing me off, and I just leaned into the mic in the middle of the song, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And I just like ran off stage, and all these people were like, wait, like, why'd you stop? And I just like ran out of the auditorium, and I was like crying and shit. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
So really, from what I'm hearing, it's amazing that you're
yeah, it was just this.
You're still trying to play music.
It was an endless series of failures and disappointments. I think the first band I was ever in was this band Virgins that happened when I was like 15 when we started that band. It was me, My friend Joel, who plays drums in Druse right now.
Yeah.
My friend Rory, who I talked about earlier, played bass, and this dude Chris was singing. And we were just like a super weirdo, like noisy hardcore band.
Were you guys a straight edge band
We
too?
were still straight edge. Yeah, I think
Okay.
on flyers we were Virgin's Triple X,
Yeah.
which was
I remember that.
pretty cool. We played like 10 shows, one out of town show. It was cool. I mean, that band was weird. I don't think anybody liked us, but I liked us. And then that band broke up. I started doing Noise with the singer Chris under the name Kingdom of God.
Mhm.
We did a bunch of shows with that. Then I kind of decided that I didn't really want to do Noise anymore, and then I kind of took a little break. And then I was in a grindcore band called Controlled by Fear for a minute. I did vocals for. It was a very cool, interesting experience on a lot of levels. And then I stopped doing that. And then I almost immediately started doing vocals in Druse. Because I remember that band ended, and then like a month later, I was in a Druse practice, and we were
Okay.
writing our demo. So that's takes me to now, basically.
Okay. So whose idea was Druse?
Oh, man.
Was that already a formed thing, and then you stepped in, or were you a part of the formation of that?
I was definitely part of the genesis of that band. Although it's weird. I think the general idea of that band was definitely Jared's, which is funny because he's not in the
Okay.
band. But he sort of got us all in the room together because he knew that I wanted to be in a band. Joe, our guitarist, was sort of done doing stuff with Such Gold for a little bit, and he wanted to do stuff. Joel wanted to do stuff, and we didn't have a bassist for a little while. But he sort of got us all in a room together, and we started jamming, and then, a day went by, and we just decided that it was cool, and we wanted to keep doing it. So yeah, definitely it was there from the start.
Awesome. Now, in several other episodes, Druse has come up.
We've been on the come up.
Yeah. And also, this an article that you happened to write
Oh yeah.
also came up on multiple episodes of
Cool.
this podcast. So, can you tell me a little bit about how that happened? And
Yeah. It's not really a terribly interesting story, but most things in modern journalism aren't really that interesting anyway. It was essentially just like there's a column on Noisy, which is the music subsidiary of Vice. That's called Scene Reports, and I mean anybody that's read the article knows the format. But essentially, it's like one person who's representing a scene from a town or a city that they feel is underrepresented gets to basically have a soapbox from which to talk about why their respective music scene is cool and shouldn't be overlooked. And I was a huge fan of it before. I used to read it. I think it's published every 2 weeks, sometimes a little bit later. I might be wrong on that, but it's published semi-frequently.
Okay.
And I really, really wanted to do one about upstate New York. The problem was is that I needed to whittle it down to a specific thing in upstate New York because it would be impossible to represent everybody if I just said the upstate New York, Western New York music scene. So I decided there were so many like metal bands and punk bands coming out of here that I wanted to write about that I was just going to do that. So there's an editor at Vice named Kim Kelly that I'm a big fan of. She writes some really terrific stuff about metal and sort of underground music culture. So I just shot her an email and I wrote out a pitch and I said, this is what I want to write about. I would love to do this for Scene Reports. And I wasn't expecting anything to come of it. And she hit me back probably within 12 hours. And she said, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. So within a week, I had the draft of the article done, and then within a month, it was published.
sick.
So that was basically all it was, and that was insane, just the whole process of it actually getting on Noisy and on Vice. I just did not expect in a million years for that to happen, but mostly people seem to be stoked about it. I've definitely read some feedback of people saying that, X band wasn't talked about, or,
It's impossible to cover
but like,
everybody.
you can't please everybody, and I feel like the amount of bands that I covered and the diversity within the bands that I covered is strong. And somebody just published one about Ithaca, like 2 weeks ago. So, and a lot of the complaints that I was reading was that I didn't cover Ithaca enough, even though I'm pretty sure, like in the first couple lines of the article, it mentions Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, and Albany. So I don't know what they were expecting. I do love Ithaca, but I mean, come on, like read the article. But yeah, I mean that was really cool, and I'm glad that our little nook of the world is getting some representation.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool bands coming out of our area right now, and you talked about a good handful of them.
Yeah.
Now, you're a journalism major,
Yep.
correct, at RIT,
Mm-hmm.
and you do some work for the magazine that RIT has. I can't
Reporter. Yes.
Reporter. Now, do you know anything about that article that came out a year or two
Oh my god,
ago?
the rock punk one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am acutely aware of that article. You want to get into it?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear an insider's view of what happened there.
I mean, I don't want to incriminate anybody because I still work with a lot of these people.
Yeah.
Not the person that actually wrote the article. He graduated, but let's see. What's the best way to go about this without getting anybody really upset? Essentially, what happened is that the author wanted to write an article about the Rochester punk scene.
Mm-hmm.
And we all thought that was a really great idea. I thought it was a terrific idea. The article that he came back with was vastly different than the article that he pitched, because what he was sort of going at, from what we could all infer, was a far more investigative approach. He wanted to kind of talk to a lot of different people and understand where the scene was at.
Yeah.
What he wrote instead was basically a profile of the brew house, and I think he talked to 2 people in the article, and then
I remember for sure that he talked to Colin Bourne, and I don't remember if he talked to anybody else.
Yeah, Colin Bourne was definitely in it, and there might have been like one sentence quote from somebody else,
Yeah.
but it was probably just Colin. And I remember there was a picture of Holy War as the
bug
photo
jar.
at the bug jar. So right off the bat, you have one source in a piece that's supposed to be investigative. You have a photo of a band that you don't talk about in the article, which seems like a big faux pas, and the photo of the band is at a venue that you don't cover in the article. So, I don't know. I remember it was a super touchy subject for a minute, and I brought up my complaints with it, which is what I just addressed to you, to him, and he seemed to understand that he may have messed up a little bit. But I think the reaction to that, all in all, was just more kind of humor than people actually getting vitriolic about it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't mad. I mean, I was mentioned in the article.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I'd rather not be mentioned at all. Like, I don't necessarily need the attention to be on me, but I was like, you mentioned me by name, but then nobody followed up to talk to me.
Yeah, it's really kind of a lame situation because that kid is like a really good journalist, but you know, we all fall through the cracks sometimes, and he just that story really kind of fell apart. And,
yeah, it was just really odd. Did you know Evan Williams, who wrote the article that it was supposed to be a follow up to, or had he already graduated?
I think he'd already graduated.
Well,
yeah.
He did. That guy was really cool.
Yeah.
I don't really have a point other than I really
He's
liked
just a
him.
cool guy.
I really liked him and thought he did a good job with that article that came out a couple years before, because it seemed like it was, it was focused on a corner of the scene and not claiming to be all about.
It's hard scene. Because if you go right off the bat with your story saying this is going to be about everything that happens in Rochester music, especially punk, then you are setting yourself up inevitably to disappoint a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because somebody is inevitably going to get pissed off because their band or their friend or their venue or whatever didn't get covered, even though you said you were going to cover everything, which seems like the big pitfall of people who try to talk about the Rochester music scene, is that you just can't say that you're going to cover everything when that's never been your intention. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was just a very strange situation.
Yeah, I was just curious to hear what you do about it, because like I said, I didn't really know anything.
I remember Chris Pogue, who was in the Holy War photo, he Instagrammed a picture of the magazine, and it was just super funny. He was like, yeah, so I found out about this today. This is an article that nobody told me was going to happen, that features a picture of my face in it that I wasn't aware of and doesn't mention my band at all. And I was like, oh boy, yeah, you really kind of got screwed.
Yeah, it was odd. And I mean, like I said, I don't care if I'm mentioned or not, but if I'm going to be mentioned in an article, I'd like it to not be about what I did 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, and it's sort of, I mean, he never reached out to you, right?
No, and I mean, like I said, I don't care,
well,
but I never stopped doing things. Like,
yeah,
and
it's good practice just to say, hey, you're going to be in this article, or hey, I'm using you as a source or a mention in this article.
Yeah, and it's
a little disconcerting that he didn't even talk to you, which is a little weird.
It seems like there's a lot of, I think why that the Noisy article was so refreshing is because so much of the music journalism I see coming out of Rochester is inaccurate.
Yeah, that's a very modest way of putting it.
Yeah, and I mean, there are people that do it that I'm cool with on a personal level and have, even shared links to my podcast. But then anytime I've been featured in any of those things, I just see where myself or bandmates have been terribly misquoted.
Yeah, the problem with that is that I was just talking about this with my brother today. Actually, is that people who want to get into writing and journalism in 2016 generally don't really care about writing or journalism. Mm-hmm. I think people just kind of want to hang out with their friends and get paid for it. Mm-hmm. And you need to maintain some level of objectivity and integrity when writing about something, because not only are you doing a disservice to all the people that you're writing about if you don't give it your all and try and create an all-encompassing, articulate story about it, but you're letting yourself down because you're not operating at the potential that you could be operating at. Mm-hmm. And that just sucks for everybody. Mm-hmm. And especially in music writing, nobody wants to piss anybody off. Everybody wants to be friends with everybody. You want to go to the shows and get back pats from all of your boys, and everybody just gets big ups and their little write-ups. But, there has to come a point in which you kind of have to draw a line where you say, okay, you guys are all my friends and I like your bands, but, you're not in PR writing. You're not just trying to give people a platform. You actually want to cover things and write about things, and finding that balance can be incredibly difficult. And I think people just kind of drop off once they realize that that's something that they're going to have to do.
Yeah, I guess it's probably harder when you're within. Even with this, I want to be careful who I don't want to talk shit on people, but I also want to feel like I can share my opinions. So.
Yeah, and I think definitely there is a place for saying really nice things about the art that you care about and the things that you're passionate about. I mean, obviously I did that with the whole Noisy piece. It's just me talking about bands that I like. But you have to kind of realize that you're not doing anybody a favor by just writing about how cool you think they are. The best way that you can be a fan of music is just by being honest with the things that you enjoy. Mm-hmm. And I would never write about a band, even if my friends were in it, if I didn't think that band was good. Mm-hmm. And the bands that I wrote about in that Noisy piece, which sounds harsh, but the bands that I wrote about in the Noisy piece are all bands that I think are terrific. Mm-hmm. So you have to kind of be able to ride that line a bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't want to shit talk people just for the sake of shit talking.
Yeah, you don't want to shit talk for the sake of shit talking. You don't want to just provide endless praise for the sake of just being friends with everybody.
Yeah,
I think there's that. It's so cliched, and I'm gonna butcher it, but there's that movie Almost Famous.
Yeah,
and who plays? It's Phil Seymour Hoffman, right? He plays Lester Bangs in that movie.
Yeah,
he has an amazing quote. That, of course, I don't remember entirely off the top of my head, but he's like, the best way that you can be friends with somebody is by being honest and being truthful with them and being unafraid or unwavering. And that's something that I definitely try to incorporate into my day-to-day life. It's just, you can't please everybody and you shouldn't try. And the people that you want to ride with you and be your friend in your life are the people that are going to appreciate you just being honest and genuine around them, even if sometimes that means you say the things or do the things that they don't want you to say or do. And I would expect the same treatment myself.
Weird. So tell me about this new Druse record. This is a full length?
No, this is an EP.
Sorry, I got.
Oh, it's fine. I mean,
off the bat, getting the facts wrong.
Full length is next. You predicted the future.
So you guys are. Well, I don't think I'm going to get this out before Saturday, but we'll pretend we're in the future.
Okay.
So you released this EP?
Yes, we did.
On Saturday night at the Bug Jar?
What a night it was. Oh, I can remember it like it was yesterday.
So are you guys just self-releasing this, or what's the deal with this? I've heard you guys have talked to some labels, or
a little bit. I think what we ultimately decided to do is that we're releasing it with our friend Jared's label, Sawyer Collective, who put out our demo, Target Weight. We didn't have any really super serious pitches, but we were talking to a couple little labels, and essentially what we decided to do was that with this record, because we worked so hard on it and because we just wanted to get it out as soon as we possibly could, we felt the most comfortable just releasing it with our friends and just having it be a very personal endeavor. So Jared's putting it out. Shout out to Jared. He invested a ton of money in releasing this record, and we really appreciate everything that he does. We're doing I think we're doing 150 tapes off the bat. And then once those are gone, if they're gone, we're going to do another 100 and then just call it. We'll be doing CDs at some point. It's 5 new songs, one of which we did a single version of with Chris Vandeviver about a year ago, honestly, like this month. And I think what we're trying to do in the near future is we're going to, this is some inside baseball, we're going to do Target Weight and The Way That We Ache, which is the new EP, on one 12-inch.
Oh, sweet.
And just release it as like a combined package, because there's a ton of like UK punk bands and crust punk bands and shit that do stuff like that, and I'm a huge fan of that format. So we kind of want to release that. It's going to cost a ton of money, but you know, making art costs a lot of money, unfortunately, and we're going to release that as one uniform package and then start working on the LP.
Awesome. Do you guys have any tours coming up or anything like that?
Yes. So that show that we played on Saturday in the past, that wouldn't make any sense because technically I would be gone now. All right, let's break the timeline a little bit. So we're recording this before the show actually happened. Yes. We are playing a release show with a lot of our friends. We're playing a release show at the Bug Jar on Saturday night, March 5th, with California Cousins, who just hopped on the show. We're really excited about that. The Slums from Buffalo, who are an awesome sort of like indie rock band. Taking Meds, who members of Such Gold from Brooklyn and Rochester, really crazy, kind of like technical pop punk, I want to say almost.
It's pretty mathy.
Yeah, definitely really mathy. And Coming Down, who are, they played here before. They're an awesome hardcore band with a Rory Van Grol and Soul Control and, you know, Achilles. How We Are, Achilles, every good band ever. So we're really excited about that. And then the day afterwards, we're leaving on, I think it's a 6 or 7 day run. We're just going to Virginia and back.
Okay.
And we're doing that. And then I think we're going to try and do 2 weeks in a couple months. Once we get back from this run, we're going to write the LP. And then we're going to do 2 weeks probably in June, maybe around then. Nothing's really set in stone. And then just see what happens.
Cool. Is this the first band you've done any touring with?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Cool.
I've done out-of-town shows with bands before. Control by Fear played in Buffalo a bunch. Even Virgins played Pennsylvania at one point. But this is definitely the first tour I've ever been on.
Awesome.
So I'm nervous, but I'm very excited.
Yeah. Well, you guys, haven't you done some weekend tours?
We've done one weekend, but that was super. I mean, we just did Albany, Worcester, and Philly and back. So this is definitely the most shows in a row I've ever played.
Awesome. And how many is it?
I think it's 7 total.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
Very cool. What are some of the Rochester bands, other than ones we've already mentioned, that you're into right now? Like I said, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff happening, and only so many spots in that article for you to talk about.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the hardest part, honestly, was whittling down everybody that I wanted to talk about into fitting into the slot where I had to mention bands from all the 4 cities I was talking about. That was probably the most difficult part about writing that whole article. I love Obsessor. They're a crazy sort of like old school thrash band from around here. Russ from Needle Drop plays in it. Brandon plays in it. He was in Municipal Waste and all those awesome Richmond area bands. I really like. I'm just gonna keep talking about Russ's bands, I guess. I really like Commando. They just put out a demo. It's just ripping hardcore. They sound like Adolescents, kind of.
I haven't heard them yet.
It's really good.
I haven't heard of them yet. So
yeah,
awesome.
The band's awesome. I'm just going to plug Joel's band, Rotten UK. Very interesting, but very, very cool. I actually wrote about them in the article. It's sort of like UK 82, like street punk throwback band. Really cool gimmick, I want to say. It's not really, well, they really live it, so it sort of transcends gimmick, but they're just a really fucking cool band. Coming Down, they're playing the show with us, just awesome hardcore band. Hideout, we played a bunch of shows with them. They're very cool, melodic hardcore. Out of the realm of, guitar bands, Benny Beyond, Ben Kruger does rap, and he's really good at it, which is very refreshing. So I really love watching him do stuff. Green Dreams, obviously. The band's terrific. Pleistocene, is that how you pronounce it? Is it Pleistocene or Pleistocene? I want to say Pleistocene.
I think it's Pleistocene.
Is it Pleistocene?
I think so.
I'm
but
awful
I
at
could be
pronouncing
wrong.
things.
Yeah.
We'll say Pleistocene/Pleistocene. That band's great. I really love them. There's so many bands from around here that I'm huge into. I mean, Mackenzie, I wish he would still do Rose Hip stuff. That was achingly beautiful.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what she ends up doing.
Yeah, she practices her electric stuff. Like, she lives below me, actually.
Cool.
So I get a sneak peek of it, which is pretty exciting. Who else? I love the Highest Leviathan. They're just a straight up like doom metal band, which Rochester does not have enough of.
Eric Glendy was one of my early guests.
Oh, really?
We used to live together, so I snatched him up early. So
That's cool.
that was one of the episodes where we talked about the article.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that band. Black Houses, that band's cool. Ex-Night Terror guys doing kind of like doomy sludge metal.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll think of more as soon as this is over. But yeah, lots of awesome bands from around here right now.
Cool. You guys played the benefit show at the Pillar.
Yeah, for Doyle.
Yeah.
Oh, Holy War, obviously.
I missed that, but how did that go? What's your assessment of that new venue? Because I mean, I know the people that run it. I haven't been there yet. Well, I haven't been there for a heavy show yet. I was there for an acoustic thing at Christmas time. But just tell me about that. How that show went and what you think of the place.
Yeah, I mean, it was
obviously
cool.
You don't. Obviously, if you hate it, you're probably not going to say it on the podcast.
I didn't hate it. When the mics go off, it gets real. No, it was really cool. I always get nervous about playing like straight up hardcore shows because I feel like everybody's gonna sniff me out immediately and realize like, oh, like there's that sensitive kid, like he listens to Depeche Mode. Like, let's give him a wedgie in the parking lot. But no, I mean it was a lot of fun. More Rochester bands. I mean, The Weight We Carry, that band's great. They played Reps, good friends of ours. That band's really cool. Sort of like really groovy hardcore. Yeah, they did their video shoot here, right?
Yeah, and then there were some complications with not complications with us here, but with their video equipment. So I don't think that's ever come out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I never saw that video.
Yeah.
So yeah, they played, Weight We Carry played, Borrowed Time played. I believe the band's from Albany.
They've got guys that are from here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they're all from here, actually.
Oh, are they? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that band's great. They played. It was a lot of fun. Definitely had, and then there was the Forked Tongues reunion set, obviously, which was very interesting, very fun. It was just weird seeing that band after not seeing them for like 5 years, which was pretty crazy. But I always loved watching that band, so it was cool to do it again. I thought we played a really great set. People seemed to be into it, which is always my assessment of all of our shows. Is people seem to be into it. Trying to keep myself humble, I guess. It was and we raised a ton of money for him. I think it came out to like $12,000.
Oh wow!
Ultimately, not with the show and the GoFundMe together.
It's really rad. I've seen that happen a couple times where like somebody from the scene here falls on hard times, and people like we don't just have great bands, we also have really great people.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I mean, it was really. I mean, I choked up a little bit when I read about how much money we like finally raised for Doyle because that was just incredible. And I mean, the space. I mean, it was cool. It's another church, which is cool. And I don't know how to describe it. It was weird. Like, you walk in and there's a little hallway, and then there's just this enormous space.
Yeah,
it's a really big room, and it's like a kind of a low ceiling, and like there's a rug. I want to say, which is fun. And or a carpet rather. It's like a big carpet, and then there's a stage sort of like tucked away in the corner, and it's maybe a foot off the ground.
Okay.
And they have like this super professional lighting set up there, which I thought was very fun. And I felt like a complete asshole when I had to when we were setting up, and I had to go up to the guy who had just spent an hour and a half setting up the lights and tell him to just turn all of them off. But no, it was a cool spot. Everybody was really nice, and we had a great time playing there. Sure.
Cool. Yeah, it's rad to see other all age spaces popping up because it's a need here in Rochester.
Absolutely.
I think that there's not enough places doing all age shows for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned feeling like you might not fit on traditional hardcore or shows with a bunch of other hardcore bands.
Yeah.
So is that a common thing for you guys that you don't feel like you fit with? Does that go beyond? Do you guys feel like you don't fit with really any specific genre? You can't really be pigeonholed. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I think that we definitely. It sounds cliched, but I think that we draw influence from the stuff that we all independently listen to because. I mean, even just within our band, we all listen to so much different stuff. Like Kevin, our bassist, listens to a lot of sort of like Gaslight Anthem, that kind of style of music. Joel is just 100% steeped in 80s stuff. Like he listens to a lot of Joy Division and New Order, and I mean, he obviously listens to punk and stuff, but that's sort of his forte. Joe is definitely more of like the ambient noise guy. He listens to a lot of Oniotrix Point Never and Tim Hecker, and he's definitely into the more electronic side of things. And I'm sort of all over the place, but mostly I listen to a lot of metal. I'm sort of like the metal guy. I'm big into like black metal and death metal and stuff like that. So we kind of try and combine all those things into something that is really just the band that we would all want to listen to. Mm-hmm. And that definitely makes for a band that doesn't fit traditionally on a lot of bills. I think most of the time when we play a show, we're kind of the odd band out. We're either like not heavy enough or we're way too heavy, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I always kind of like being the band that stands out because, I mean, nobody wants to go to a show where it's just, I mean, maybe some people do, but nobody wants to go to a show that is like 15 hardcore bands playing.
I don't want that.
Because at a point you're going to get tired of, you know, the same beat and the same like mosh calls and everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of like being the band that plays right in the middle or right at the end or right in the beginning or any time that is kind of a... I like being the band that plays the show. That it's kind of a refresher, I want to say, that we don't really sound like a lot of other bands. And I'm always surprised when people come up to us and say what they think we sound like. We've gotten everything from like like Modern Life is War to Deftones, which is always very cool.
I definitely hear a lot of like screamo influence as well.
Yeah,
what you guys are doing
for sure.
You guys, every time I see you, you get better.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
I'm excited to see what you guys do next.
Me too. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, if people want to find you on the internet, or if you want to share that information, where can they do that? And if there's any last plugs that you want to put in here, go for it.
Sure. I guess I'll really talk about Druse more than myself because that's kind of what I want people to focus on. You can find Druse at facebook.com/DruseBand, I want to say. Our stuff is on Bandcamp at druseband.bandcamp.com. I think that's how those URLs work, but if you just search Druse Bandcamp, you'll find all of our stuff.
I'll have it in the show notes,
yeah.
For sure.
By the time this comes out, all of our stuff will be on iTunes and Spotify, so that'll be fun. You can find all of our stuff there. I think we just got some service where we're going to be on basically everything, so if you have like iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, whatever, all of our stuff is going to be on there.
Tidal.
Tidal.
It's a Tidal exclusive.
I'm sorry to say, but our next 12 records are going to be Tidal exclusives. Jay-Z just like wrote us a check and we couldn't say no. Fuck that. All of our stuff, I mean, we're on Twitter. I think it's just, again, Druse Band. Really, really creative. I never updated our Twitter, though. Instagram is probably a better bet. If you couldn't guess it, it was Druse Band. What else? We've got this record coming out. By the time that this is out, it'll be out. So you can stream that on our Bandcamp, and you can probably buy a tape on the internet or come see us to the show and pick one up. Yeah, and we're just going to be playing a ton of shows. I believe we're playing this release show, and they're going on tour, and then we're coming back, and I think we're playing with Such Gold at the Bug Jar.
Oh, yeah.
Which will be fun.
About that show. Who else?
It's us, Such Gold, Hideout, and I think...
Pairs. Is that
Pairs.
Show?
Yeah.
That band is so
I haven't heard them, but that's
good.
been the reaction of everyone that's talked about them. They've just been like, yo, Pairs is the best.
Yeah, check them out.
I really should. They're on Fat Wreck, right?
They're on Fat Wreck, but they don't sound like what you would expect.
Like No Effects.
Yeah, they don't sound like what a Fat Wreck band is expected to sound like.
That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, even if they did, I love Fat Wreck.
I mean, of course, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're playing that show, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to talk about that, but whatever.
I think there's a Facebook event.
There's a Facebook event, but I think our band is listed as Secret TBA.
Oh.
Which I don't like. That kind of bums me out because I feel like we're going to get announced and people are going to be like, oh, cool. It's like, holy shit, it's Druse!
We'll find out and let me know, and I can edit that out if need be.
I mean, it doesn't matter at this point. I just run whatever. So we're playing that show, and then we're just going to hunker down and write the LP, and then maybe do a couple more tours in the meantime.
Awesome. And before we end it, I might as well ask you what do you think is going to happen at WrestleMania?
Oh my god!
Since you're a fellow wrestling fan.
I'm not like an old school wrestling fan though. I've been a wrestling fan for probably a year at this point, so my knowledge of wrestling as a whole is admittedly very small. I think a lot of bullshit is going to happen at WrestleMania this year. I think that Triple H will do something stupid. I think that Stone Cold's obviously going to be there. I don't know. I'm hoping for a Seth Rollins return. That would be nice.
That would be pretty awesome.
I'm hoping for a surprise Daniel Bryan appearance, and that his whole retirement was just a very cruel joke. Because I'm still not over that.
Yeah, that actually at this point, the last episode I put up, my guest and I had a long Daniel Bryan conversation, and
I think that Vince McMahon's son, that's Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
I think that Shane McMahon is going to have a very interesting match.
See, I mean, I'm kind of with you as far as like I just got into it. I was into it when I was like really young.
Yeah, me too.
But I missed a lot of that whole Attitude era.
I was into it when I was like 8, from like 8 to 8.5, and then I stopped, and then I got into it again last year.
Yeah, and so I mean, I got into it leading up to WrestleMania 30. So
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of these Shane matches, so
I
I'll
don't
have to get on the network and do a little bit of research.
Yeah,
when I have some free time.
I didn't even know Vince McMahon had a son until I was watching the Raw where Shane McMahon came back, and I turned to my brother and I was like, "Who's that?" He's like, "That's his son." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." But he seems like kind of a dick, so that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I was just curious to see if you had any.
I'm sure The Rock will be there for some reason. He'll probably come and say some catchphrases and plug his Instagram and then leave.
That sounds pretty predictable. I don't think I don't know. I'm not.
Are the Dudley Boys on the card?
I don't see. I've only been watching the Hulu cut.
Okay.
So, because I don't have cable.
Yeah, I mean,
and so,
why would you pay for that?
Yeah, so I haven't. I don't think the Dudley Boys have been on the Hulu cut.
I think that
lately, anyway.
If the Dudley Boys wrestle, it'll be the highlight of the night because I could watch them wrestle the phone book and it would be great. That's an expression I just made up. I think that I don't know, man. I mean, I've just been watching Lucha Underground.
Dude, I haven't been up on it this season,
God,
but it's so good. What I watched last season is awesome.
That's like
so entertaining.
That's the true wrestling right there because I don't know, the stuff that they do is legitimately life-threatening. Not that wrestling isn't dangerous because it obviously is, but the death-defying stuff that they do on that show is just it makes me feel so meek and inadequate, but like in the best way. I'm just like I will never achieve a level of physicality as these people will.
Yeah, I'd be terrified to try to be a wrestler for real. I'm
just holding out for one WrestleMania that's just all lucha. That's the world I one day want to live in. Oh, and maybe, I don't know, I mean, with it's election season, Trump's obviously in the news. I mean, probably Trump should make an appearance and then just get assassinated in the middle of the ring.
Get another stunner.
Yeah,
Stone Cold.
But like a fatal one.
Yeah.
Like sends him to the center of the earth and he just burns alive. That'd be cool.
I'd be into that.
Yeah. I'm sorry if the FBI is listening to this. I'm not planning on assassinating Trump at WrestleMania.
He's probably not even going to be at WrestleMania.
No, he won't. I'll probably just be tweeting about it, saying that he has a wrestling ring that's 50 times bigger.
Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Yeah. There was a picture I saw the other day that was hilarious. There was a picture of Donald Trump and Hulk Hogan. It was like, one of these guys is a racist, homophobic WWE Hall of Famer, and the other one is Hulk Hogan.
I wouldn't be entirely shocked if Hogan came back.
Of course, yeah. I think
I know
honestly,
he will at some point, but
he'll make sporadic appearances until the day he dies.
Yeah, I think the WWE logic, they assume that most of their fan base has forgotten by now.
Yeah, and honestly, most of them probably, even if they haven't, they probably just don't care.
Yeah,
which is sad. But
enough time has passed that people would.
Yeah, like 5 months, maybe.
Yeah, it's crazy with how quick there's just so much news coming at us on a daily basis that if you don't really care, then you're just gonna forget about a lot of things.
Yeah, it's hard to be a wrestling fan in 2016, but we're trying our best.
You just heard In the Room With You by Druse. If you haven't checked out that band yet, you should get on that. They're awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed the conversation Alex and I had. Now, next week, we've got a big guest. Well, by my standards, he's a big guest. I know he's not like a huge star or anything, but I talked to Adam Gorin of Adam and His Package. So, I'm super excited to share that conversation with you guys. Adam is the nicest dude, and we had a lot of fun chatting over the internet. So, I really hope you guys enjoy that conversation. And yeah, that's about all I've got for this week. Thank you so much for listening. You guys are awesome.